So the topic of go-to-market is very near and dear to me. Like many of you, I transitioned to business from engineering and had the mindset, if you have a good product, why do you need sales and marketing? The product sells itself. But I couldn't have been more wrong, right? Sales, marketing, partnership are, if not equally important, more important than the product itself, right? And can often be the competitive advantage. So that's what we're going to discuss in the panel. To open up, I would like to ask each panelist to describe, share their experience of how they have taken a product to market, what they have thought about, how they have thought about the product market fit, various partnerships, and what are some of the best practices that they would like to share. So maybe we can go around the room on the stage with Chitra first.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about my 8 years at Salesforce. When I joined, it was 300 million, but it was still a one-product company, and nobody knew how to sell anything but sales automation. When we then added the customer, basically the service cloud to the offering, the company went through a huge sort of revamp of how it approached the market altogether, because we realized our sales guys had no idea how to sell to the head of the call center. And so we had to redo everything in terms of the training, in terms of really thinking about how we market, what kinds of customer stories do we equip our sales guys with. So it was a very large effort between marketing and sales. Did we need specialist salespeople to sort of overlay on top of the sales force? So we got through that pretty well, and then we got to platform, where this was an even further distance from the CRM offering. And frankly, I think the company really struggled with how you go to market with something where you're now selling to IT, and something that could be the answer to everything. In fact, that was the early form of marketing, was you can build anything, which fell flat on its face. Because if you didn't have use cases that you figured out and stories against those use cases, nobody was going to know what you could do with the product. So to eventually get to that solution selling, we had to again change the company enormously in terms of, again, adding the specialist sales role, really thinking about the key use cases. Were you a rip and replace of Oracle, or were you actually enhancing it? So again, every time we added a new product moving towards solution sell, we had to change every aspect of go-to-market.
Thank you, Chitra.
Good stuff, Chitra. So just a show of hands, how many of you here are interested in B2B kinds of things, and what part of the room is kind of, the rest are all B2C? So like 50-50, roughly? All right, great. So, my experience has always been in B2B, either startups or large companies. So right now at VMware, it's a $1.5 billion business, but I also own GTM for a bunch of incubation businesses. So the first thing I want to talk about is, when you go to talk to a VC, they're going to tell you about product market fit. So, what does product market fit mean? Clearly very important. So the first thing not to do is to start with a solution. So, most people kind of, a typical mistake is, hey, I built something, and I got excited about some technology or some space, and I built something, and now, or you might have done some market research, but did not actually think through what exactly the problem is that you're solving for the customer. And then the most important part after that is the customer willing to pay for that? That's a huge thing, because you can go talk to somebody and ask and lay out like a bunch of problems and say, oh, is this like a pain point? Is this kind of bother you? And how much time do you spend doing this? And if I automated all this with kind of one click of a button, did that sound interesting? The answer will be, yeah, that sounds interesting. Very different from saying, okay, will you actually pay for that? And how much will you pay? That actually is a very, very hard kind of thing to determine. How much will somebody pay for that problem? It's easy for a customer that you have, or somebody you've known for a long time, to kind of tell you, yeah, that sounds like a interesting solution to a difficult problem. That's one part of it. The other part of it is, and we can talk more, but I'll just kind of leave that and then let the others kind of chime in. The other part of it is, when you think about product market, nobody kind of talks about route to market. Product market GTM. So everyone says product market fit. Okay, great. So you have identified a problem, you have identified a product that solves that problem. you're even being disciplined enough to actually figure out that there is value to that customer, that they're actually willing to pay some real money for this. Now the real question is, how are you going to scalably find a way to find not just 10 customers, but 100 and 200? Now this is a tough one because typically you kind of think about yourself as the founder, you know the problem domain, you know the technology domain, you are able to kind of go out there and find the customer and pitch to him or her and provide that convincing value and close the deal. Okay, that's one part of it, and for the first 10 or 20 customers that you need, that's great. But you got to think about repeatedly, how are you going to find the next 100 and the next 100 after that? If you're going to require PhD salespeople, okay, great. You better have a problem that is so valuable that you can actually find those salespeople economically. So product, market, and think about the route to market or the GTM behind that. All right, I'll stop right there.
Okay, thanks, Ajay. You opened the door, so I'm going to go walk right into it, which is B2B versus B2C. So my expertise is all in the latter, going direct to consumer marketing. So if you think about if you're building an app or a website, or if you're trying to figure out how to get traffic or usage, that's kind of where most of my go-to-market experiences for the last 10 years or so. It's been, like my intro said, in 3 very different markets as I've learned this skill. The first one was in India, actually at the previous group. Spent some time there thinking about 24/7 roadside assistance for car service in India. How do you identify who's got the problem, how do you reach them, how do you get the solution delivered. Then I rejoined a startup that I left called Cosmics in Mountain View. Again, consumer internet search. And there I learned more on the paid side, on the digital side. That was acquired by Walmart. So now I'm in the retail world, where it's really the channel to market that Sujay mentioned is another kind of concept that comes up. Where are all these consumers? Different in the car market in India, different in the search market in Cosmics. Walmart, 2 types, digital and physical. Very large channel to market is the source. To create distribution of consumers, 150 to 200 million consumers walk through Walmart stores every year. So every week, sorry. Every week. And then our case is completely digital, 100% digital back again. Different market, this time it's in HR. But this is again the market we're aiming at is consumers, employees. So now that I think about it, the common thread from Formula 1 to now has been the consumer market. Our experience.
There you found it.
I was just this panelist by thing, right? Thank you. So this is the, if I think back, a lot of my work has been in consumer. So there's anybody has any questions, I'm happy to help, but that's kind of going to be my perspective here.
So I've got, again, primarily a B2B experience, although I've kind of worked for B2B companies predominantly, but again, like right now, I work for a company which just both B2B and B2C, so I certainly know some of the tension that exists between the B2C and the B2B world. But just to add to what Chitra and Sajay said, one of the things that you'll see as your product evolves is the go-to-market evolves. I think, if anything, I again work at VMware. That's where most of my go-to-market iterations, I would call it, sort of got evolved. So things like, when we were initially at VMware, we were building up the end-user computing, the whole BlackBerry was business unit now, but at that point in product. When we constantly, one of the things that we constantly had to do was evolve, right? So every time we looked at go-to-market, we always started from the customer and then walked backwards, so to speak, right? And like for example, when we started, bulk of what our go-to-market was first making sure that our internal sales folks, right, so the VMware sales folks were trained, enabled, and were motivated to sell the product. So that was sort of the first iteration. And the point behind that was, look, I need to first make sure my own sales team is motivated to sell it. And just to put things in context, VMware, just like Chitra mentioned, was the sales folks, the entire management team, etc. They were mostly focused on selling into the data center. And here comes the end user computing team, which is trying to sell products which is primarily towards the desktop admin. It's very different sets of folks that you need to target. So one of the key things that you have to do is make sure you pretty much press the reset button, train your sales team to sort of tell a different story, go hunt different sets of people. And the reason we first focused on that is to get early wins. And then about 18 months into the whole overall journey, we sort of started making this pivot towards what Sajay said, right? So it's not about the first 10, 15 million. How do I actually now scale the business to $500 million, right? So typically, what I've seen again, add VMware, add Mobile Island, add Malwarebytes, the first 100 million honestly is reasonably easy to get. And then
Tell us the recipe.
Yeah, exactly.
I see 5 million.
But now you know where I'm going to work next. But the reality is that there's always these pivots that you have to make, right? So like, for example, when we're closer to the 100 million range, right, well, you have to start thinking when you're in the 70, 75 million range, right? So we have to actually start thinking about how do I actually build up a channel, not just a channel that fulfills, but how do you actually make sure you sell that, right? So now you start making those pivots again, right? So the key thing that you'll see when you're building up a business is the notion of ever-evolving go-to-market. Very different when you're working for a company like VMware. Right? So I had the luxury of having the brand associated with it, right? So I always call myself the relative stepchild for VMware, right? Because I was, right? So that's different than Mobile Island, right? So Mobile Island was a classic startup. And one of the things that we had to do at Mobile Island was fundamentally figure out how to actually build the channel, but with the right set of partners, right? So initially, and again, one of the things that you'll see is that you do make some mistakes, right? But fundamentally, it's about how soon you realize those mistakes and then pivot fast, right? And 80% is good enough. I mean, if you know what your go-to-market is 80% of the time, or you've got 80% confidence, go. Don't wait for it. Don't pontificate. Don't wait for it to be really perfect. Right? So that's at least what I've learned across the board. Again, net of it is, it'll always evolve. There are sort of typically sort of points in time, or actually I should say that's life cycle of product where you have to pivot. Even if you don't think you need to pivot, you should be thinking about it and make those pivots. The second thing is, so that's the constant change piece. The second thing that always you need to keep in mind is look at who your target customers are and then work backwards, right? Who do those customers buy from, and then what kind of messages do you need to put. And make sure when you're putting messages together, it's the customers and whatever the channel is or whatever your go-to-market is.
So my world is very different. It's semiconductor capital equipment, and it's kind of more like a space race. So we work closely with our customers, and a very important thing for us is aligning technical roadmaps. And a good marketing person, the best contribution he can make to the business unit is to have a very nice aligned roadmap with the customer, and you do that via frequent technology exchange meetings. And this is where we try to align the roadmaps 2-3 years ahead of time, because it does take about 18 months to 2 years to design a new piece of equipment that meets the requirements. And the requirements are very, very stringent, because we're talking about basically extending Moore's law to the next technology node. And so there's a certain cadence to it, there's a certain rhythm to it. And some companies are ahead and some companies are a little behind. So what we do is we try to work with the companies that are ahead of the pack. And then that learning, working closely with the customers, shipping them an alpha prototype, and evolving the equipment at the semiconductor fab. So there's a lot of design iterations that happen, a lot of testing that we cannot do, our customers do on their devices and everything. So we get that feedback, and then we put that into the rest of the product, and then we sell it to the rest of the market. So the important thing for us is to have a good roadmap, align with the customer, solve their high-value problems, and stay ahead of the pack as much as possible. The day you start falling behind the roadmap, it's like death for the company, because you're always playing to the second-tier customers, and you're always getting really pushed down hard on the pricing, and then that means your R&D is going to not be as good. which means you're going to go into the death spiral. So that's kind of our go-to-market strategy typically is to stay ahead and innovate as fast as possible so we can feed it into our customers' roadmaps.
Right, thanks, Murli. So I know we all would like to be at 100 million run rate, but we all start small, right? Typically the startups have few people, right? Mostly engineers. The CEO typically does the role of the planning go-to-market strategy. So my next question to the panel is, if I'm a startup, at what stage do I hire a dedicated marketing, sales, and partnership person? At what stage do I need to be so that I can have a dedicated person for each of these roles? So Sajay, do you want to get us started?
Yeah, sure. So till you get your first 10, 20 customers, and depending upon what business you are in, you could be past like 1 million before you start getting, individual people for all of these roles. But having like a director for product marketing, initially it could be a product management and product marketing could be kind of combined together. Then you may, depending upon how you're starting to scale, you may split them up. It's good to have like an early salesperson, one of these startup salespeople. So this is not necessarily mostly a technical salesperson early on. You don't need a VP of sales till, again, you've got about 10, 20 customers. Again, I'm kind of talking about a B2B kind of context. If you're in a B2C, I'm sure you'll kind of pick up on that. Those numbers are like, 100x different. So, but the point though is that till you're actually past that, 20, 30 paying customers, you definitely are not going to have individual people there. And the first seller that you try to get, that needs to be a person who is a technical seller and very much capable of working with a startup. I mean, when you heard about the GTM comments, you heard like 3 different kinds of, at least 3 different, there's a consumer one and 3 different enterprise points. I think Murli just kind of talked about how you work closely with a design partner and many of you are in highly technical kinds of places where you might want that kind of a model. Then Chitra kind of talked about, hey, if you already have an existing channel, and either because you're aligned with a partner and you're kind of going down that path, then you need to kind of work your product market along that side. Or you're a true startup, in which case better think about how you're going to build that channel, and then at that point the selection of your 3 individuals start making more sense because now you're on your own to kind of build all those things. You can't rely on a route that's carved for you.
Chitra, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I wanted to add a little bit, completely agree with Sajay, but I think a lot is going to depend, even in B2B, on who your target segment is. The earlier comment that Raj made, it all starts with your customer. So the current startup I'm with, the company, is 50-something people, of which more than half are go-to-market. I was really shocked when I was thinking of joining them, but it turns out it's an IoT and machine learning play that is only targeting Fortune 500 companies that are in sort of the best places to work. And so you can't get to Fortune 500 companies unless you have feet on the street, people who will go see them, unless you have some sales engineering. Which is why actually most companies do not start in enterprise, right? So there's a reason that most companies will start in mid-market or SMB. But if you're in an SMB play, which was the previous startup I was at, which was an online lending marketplace, you had to build it very differently. You had a lot more engineering resources, and then you had marketing. You didn't need sales as much because it was a mass market play to SMB. So I think a lot also is going to depend, overlaying what Sajay said, with who is your customer.
Yeah, let me sort of, my last 2 small companies, Molan and Alibaba, so it's slightly in taking off what Chitra said. Molan was traditional B2B enterprise way, right? So when I say enterprise again, typically it's 5,000 employees and above, right? That was the target segment. So for that, what really the company did was, obviously, you get the product built, and the first thing that they ended up doing is this whole notion of teaching customers. Right? Think of them as reference customers, think of them as customers who are willing to give you as much feedback as possible. So that was fundamentally what they were focused on, right? Getting about 20, 25 odd reference customers, teaching customers, and obviously they need to be paid teaching customers. Right? So that was one of the key initial objectives there. So for that, the key sets of functions that they really cared about was a technical product manager, right? One or two technical product managers who could also talk to the customers to tease out what they really need. And after that, it was mostly, basically a sales individual, right? So a sales individual, enterprise salesperson. So that's sort of how they actually started building up that overall team. And you notice that I said I didn't even talk about marketing yet, right? So again, for that segment, it was more important to go get this initial customers. For that, they needed the sales folks who had the Rolodex, and the Rolodex was important to get those initial teaching customers. And then slowly we scaled up the overall the sales team, and then we actually started focusing on marketing. So that's the enterprise play. Now with Bytes, I mean, all that joined like a year ago. Again, it's mostly sort of the overall company grew from the consumer side more so in the mid-market segment or small businesses. There was just fundamentally build the product, drive the marketing, right? So B2C marketing side, and to some extent the lower end of the marketing side. Those are the two key levers that we were pulling. Like literally the sales team came into play very, very late, and even the sales team was completely different than my previous mobile line experience. Right now, we continue to build inside sales team. We don't need outside sort of expensive sales force at this point in time. Again, it's a product market fit, right? We focus more on the mid-market segment, and now we're building up a big, massive inside sales team. So again, two different, just again, from my experience, again, echoing what she said, it's very important to look at the segment and also the type of product which is selling.
Thanks, Raj. So let's say my now startup has grown up, and now I have a dedicated marketing team and a dedicated sales team. You know, one of the biggest pet peeves, I'm sure you all have heard from salespeople, is that marketing is not bringing good enough leads, and then marketing complains that the salespeople are not doing follow-ups, right? So how do you maximize and do a sort of build collaboration between marketing and sales teams? So Murli, why don't you get us started on that?
I don't know why we need sales guys. No, actually, we do need them. But there's always this tension, right, as Lodro was saying. So I think the important thing is, for me as a marketing guy, I'm always building a relationship with my sales guys. I'm actually nice to my sales guys. I don't beat them about price, because they're the ones who are trying to get the deal, and therefore they're going to try to, they don't want to do it that way, but they do drop the price. And I'm here trying to hold it up, right, because we want gross margin for the business unit. So that's typically the tension. Also, the other tension is the marketing folks want the value proposition the salespeople want the value proposition from the marketing folks. And sometimes we gotta work hard to get that out, right? And that's where we work with the engineering team, and then we work with the end customers and try to establish that. So there's always a good tension. I think it's a healthy tension between sales and marketing, but having that relationship is very important. It also comes in handy. You have to train your salespeople, and they have to go and eventually evangelize the customer. Even though I do some of the initial evangelization, ultimately I cannot be every place, everywhere, all the time. And that's what the sales guys are for. They're close to the customer usually. They're in the region, and they see them every day, and they buy them lunch every day. That's their job, right? So that's when they're going to evangelize the customer. So it's important to multiply your force, right? To multiply your effectiveness as a marketing person. You need to have that good rapport with the sales guy. If he or she, the salesperson, likes the ammunition you give them, they will do a better job of selling your product. Ultimately, they are selling multiple products, especially in my company. So it's important to get that mind share and focus them on your product. So it's also a bit of a competitive environment. So these are some of the dynamics.
Any more comments?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we'll really just start off by saying sales and marketing, especially the sellers, will always point fingers, and there's no escaping that, because the moment sales is tough and you're exerting pressure, then it's like, there's not enough leads. So that's a given. So if you're the CEO, then it's your job to kind of have your own metrics on both sides. You got a set of metrics for lead generation, cost per lead, et cetera, around your marketing. You have a whole dashboard there. You hold them accountable, and you hold sales accountable for the rank that they have. And if you have a mature leader on both sides, they've seen this movie many times, and they recognize the tension and they will get along with it. If you have younger, less experienced kind of people in these roles, then it's natural for them to kind of point fingers. And if you're the CEO, you got to call bullshit and say like, yeah, you can keep whining about this, but I'm not going to take it. I know exactly what's kind of going on. Yeah, and recognize that this is hard. Yeah, sure, we would like 1 million more leads. And the other part of it is to kind of get them both kind of working together, so there's full transparency about what's going on, what's happening with the on the sales side and how the pipeline is kind of moving, and jointly kind of problem solve. Same thing on the marketing side, top of funnel, how are you kind of working through, and the sales teams will have SEs, etc. working through, and there will be a lot of feedback coming as to what's working, what's not. Marketing is generating leads, are they good leads, are they useless leads? So if you are transparent on both sides, then and they start each kind of feeding off the other, there is more appreciation for what's going on. But the tension is a given.
Yeah, so let's just add on to that. Right? So I've been on both sides, on the sales and the marketing side. You see, one of the things, like, I'll talk about my early mistakes too, right? So one of my early mistakes was, when I was on the marketing side, was just focus on, number of leads. I mean, most people in marketing, right, they just focus on, hey, I need to go get whatever, X number of leads, right? The reality is that doesn't work a lot, right? That's again my perspective, right? So what I've been doing for the past couple of companies is effectively we have a common goal, right? So right now my marketing team is responsible for a pipeline, right? So we agree with the sales team that I'm going to generate, for example, 75% of my new business pipeline, right? It's the dollars that really that matters, right? I couldn't care less if it's 100 leads or 20,000 leads, right? So every individual in my marketing team has a pipeline goal, right? So I kind of count them like sales guys too, right? So that actually helps a lot, right? Because if I sign up for a dollar pipeline goal, again, that's the mutual, that's sort of a common goal between us and the sales team, right? Because what does the sales team care about, right? They care about two things, right? Closing a deal and building a pipeline. What we just did is, by sort of signing up for X% of the pipeline, is sort of have it common this time, right? And effectively that takes care of the first one. The second one is, as you start building up a marketing team, make sure you sort of focus on what's the product marketing, or in some companies it's called the technical marketing team. They're again super valuable set of folks. What they help you do is not just enable the sales team, but more important, they help the sales team close deals, right? And I kid you not, the number of times a sales individual, a sales rep, wants to bring in some corporate folks, technical marketing folks, for roadmap presentations, etc. If you help them close the deal, but again, further reduces attention, right? So so even in my current company, we have a joint goal, pipeline goal, and then the second goal from a product marketing, technical marketing team is to actually, they have to go visit at least 12 customers every quarter, right? If they don't, they have to go find a new job. So that's as simple as that.
Thanks, Raj. So let's talk about partnerships. Partnerships can be very tricky. At Danal, one of our biggest partner is our biggest competitor as well, right? So what are some of the things to watch for? If you could describe, how do you incentivize a partner? What are some of the things to avoid? What are some of the things to look for when you're forming the partnerships? So Chitra, any advice on that?
Well, I think that really at Salesforce, a huge amount of what we do is the whole partner ecosystem, right? There's a whole multiplier. At Salesforce, the big thing that has evolved is the whole partner ecosystem and the huge multiplier effect that comes from that ecosystem. Having said which, I think you have to be careful at what point in your evolution you decide to start doing partnerships. So the first X years I was at Salesforce, again, it was already 300 million, 500 million, but they tried very hard to partner with people like Oracle and Deloitte. But actually, they were at the wrong point in time trying to go after those partnerships, because in fact, a Deloitte or an Accenture was losing money because they would rather be selling Oracle or building on Oracle, and it made them a lot more money. And so if you fast forward to the point your customers actually are asking for your product, then you actually get to the point you have sufficient leverage that your partner will come to the table with you. And now there are these really tiny ecosystems, but it didn't work in its first 5 years of evolution.
So let me speak to this from a B2C side. I was going to say something yesterday you mentioned about the first starting off. One of the best ways to kick off a consumer startup is to find a partner. In the first initial stage, of course you have to have a good partner, a good product. Google's, I don't know if you guys know that Google distributed search first before they built their own thing. It was calling Yahoo? It's precisely. So today, from a basic perspective, we have, some these are not easy to get, but once you have a compelling salary product, we have a partnership with Google for distribution. So if you go to Google, search for jobs on Google, and if you look at the job detail page, there's a base salary estimate on the Google job listing. Right? So it's things like that. Partnerships are super effective for startups, but you must have a early compelling product before you can get there. And there are several other cosmics we had. A large range of partners already. It's content that you, data that you have. Application distribution, you get on partner sites, and that's how consumers come back to you. If you go to udacity.com, you'll see all the nanodegrees have a salary estimate of nanodegree graduates out of HESA. So these are all things that you can get, assuming you have a very compelling core product. And that's really important for consumers.
So Jay, before you start, let me sort of push you a little bit on that. So I have a partner who's working with me and say my competitor. I want that partner to use me and not the competitor. How do I incentivize that partner?
All right. So firstly, you need to have a taxonomy of partners because there are partners and there are partners, right? So you have solution partners, your VARs, resellers, etc. Then you have your systems integrators, the Accentures and such. When you have OEMs, original equipment guys, HP, Google in this case, where you're supplying search technology from Google as a startup to, whatever, Microsoft or then AOL or whoever was around. So there are different levels of kind of partnership. But specifically to what she's kind of asking, I assume you're kind of talking in terms of resellers and solution partners, right? It's really, fundamentally, you have to think that partners are about making money. They don't care about your product. You have to think about how they're making money. So the two things why a partner will carry your product is one is that the product actually works. So if this thing is still fairly early and it's got training wheels on it, and if it breaks and so on, your partners are not capable of figuring this out. That's why you have your SEs and your engineers and so on. It has to be fairly baked before you go to a partner. Next.
Just to add to that, I'll keep contrasting my VMware experience and my mobile/Now experience. Right? So VMware, it's interesting. We actually went down the path that Sajid suggested, right? What we quickly found, again, remember it was a regular stepchild there, right? So what we quickly found was that even though it was a good enough product, we carried the VMware brand, the margins that we were getting was not good enough for the VMware resellers to sell because it was not enough money, right? So what we ended up doing is, in addition to that, we actually started spinning around and sort of talking about what's called the drag associated with selling the solution, right? So it's basically when you sell the VMware, in my case, end user computing product, it's the software licenses, the margin. But what you also talk about is the amount of, the number of devices you can sell, the consulting services or the professional services that you can sell, right? So if you look at a lot of the solution partners, the reseller partners that Joe was talking about, they're actually, half of the money or most of the money that they make is through the consulting services, right? And putting the overall solution together. So we ended up, we started seeing that once we were able to sort of establish that, hey, look, if you sell, for every dollar of the end user computing product that you sell, you can make up to 10 to 14x by selling some ecosystem of products. That's when they started sort of, the overall value proposition started clicking, and that's when they started sort of actually selling as opposed to fulfilling. So that's the VMware experience. the no plan experience, we started off by going after, again, the resale community, the big giant sort of gorillas, right? From a resale market, like the CWs of the world, etc. We failed miserably. The reason we failed miserably was, again, because there wasn't enough money for those folks to make, right? And so what we ended up doing is, and again, this is more true in Europe, less true in the US. In Europe, we actually ended up going with what we call the ninja partners, smaller partners, but those are the partners that you could kind of, big dog, right, so to speak. And you actually could work with them and there was incentive to actually sell a solution. And again, notice that, again, mapping it back to what I first said, there's a place for the ninja partners, which is when you're building up a business, especially in Europe. But once you get to like a European business of, again, like 20-ish million, 25 million, they won't get you to the next stage. That's when you actually need to start again getting to those slightly larger partners. And again, that's the evolution you have to take, right? So again, two different experiences depending on the size of the company and what you want to achieve.
I think the Ninja Partner is a good advice for the startup folks, right? Because there are always these specialist partners whose value prop to their customers that I'll bring cool technologies to you. So they are a little bit more, empathetic to the startup. Not forgetting that they're in it to make money, and at the end of the day, they're less about technology and more about making money. But Ninja Partner is a good term.
So I have a few more questions that I wanted to cover, but I want to ask one last question that Naren asked me to add to this, which was, if I'm an engineer and I want to make a transition to a team that does go-to-market strategy, do I need to get an MBA? Or can I do a transition within the organization? So Murli, would you like to share your opinion on that?
Yeah, sure. I think I'm probably the odd one out of the panel. I'm the one who doesn't have an MBA.
I have the short answer is if you don't go to Harvard, it's over.
So that's one extreme. And my answer is you don't really need an MBA, especially if, I actually had an opportunity to go to a full-time MBA and I went and talked to a lot of people in my company.
Did you talk to a Harvard MBA guy?
There was a Harvard MBA who was actually also an IT Madras alumnus in my company. And the advice he offered me was, he said, if you're planning to kind of restart your career, if you want to change your industry, if you want to change your line of work, then go to an MBA. Otherwise, if you want to stick to this industry and you want to stick to product marketing or technical marketing or product management, you're doing the right thing. Just, I was doing a part-time engineering management course, so just continue to do that. And I think it was okay. It actually paid off for me. I don't have any issues. But I think if you want to make a strategic trajectory type of movement, changing your trajectory, definitely going to a top MBA school should help. I don't know.
I'll tell you, right? I mean, business school for me was 18 months of, a blur.
All you working people, it's that Friday night at the pub thing.
Every night was a Friday night. Friday, you know what it means. So again,
no wonder it's a blur.
I was trying to be polite here. Thank you for taking all this. So again, I think the thing about going to business school is basically, again, I was an ex-engineer. I tell you, I was a failed engineer, so I went to business school. It's supposed to be funny.
Very convincing. You're very convincing.
There you go. So the joke is on me now. So again, what does business school teach you? Right? I think that's fundamentally what it comes down to, right? Because the opportunity cost is significantly high, right? It's at least $250,000, if not more, right? Over 18 to 24 months. So for me personally, at least, when I was an engineer, I was very myopic. I always had my blinders on. I would love to go dig deep into a problem, but I never really took a step back and was trying to sort of figure out what the hypotheses were before I was like, okay, go figure out the right solution. So help me think broadly. And again, as an ex-engineer, believe it or not, I was super shy, right? I I was afraid of talking to people. I loved, loved my TV, loved my computer, and that's it, right? And so it actually did help me actually sort of, interface with more and more people, right? When you look at me, right, I'm like, talking all the time. So again, those are the things. It sort of opens up how you actually think, right? Which again, as an engineer, typically you're much more focused in terms of solving problems. So that's certainly what it taught me, how to network much more openly, right? That's what it taught me. I learned the basics of the different aspects, but again, I mean, the reason we're successful is not because I know how to do my financials, all my modeling and all the stuff. I hire people to do that, right? But ultimately, it's as long as you sort of can identify the right person, you put it up, right? And if you're not changing your career, I learned more after business school, right? Through my experience, my BMO experience was a phenomenal experience, right? Got burnt a lot, right? And learned from my mistakes and kept evolving it, right? So if you guys are not planning to change your career, so to speak, in terms of a completely different line of work, when your experience is much, much more valuable than going to business school, assuming that you can think broadly and all those things.
Yeah, I wanted to say I absolutely agree. If you know what you want to do and you can look at other people in that line and they don't have MBAs and you're on that path, that is great. You don't need an MBA at all. But if you want option value, I mean, if you're like me, I've always been a little confused about what I want to do, and I sort of meandered all over the place. It opened up phenomenal option value. It lets you go in a very different direction, should you choose. I also did a very similar thing. I went into Harvard with the plan, less of learning the analytics, but to say, here you're sitting in a class of 90 people and you have to challenge yourself to speak 1 out of every 3 times, even if you have no clue. That was my goal, actually. That you had to really read the case and you'd still say something. But I think that it does help you, therefore, with communication. But more than anything, I think it helps you with option value. If you're not sure what you want to do, it opens up a lot of doors.
I'm doing the next panel. Thank you. That's a great talk.
I hope you have some AI support on the side.
So, before we open up to the audience, any final comments, remarks from the panelists?
Yeah, I'd say that just on the transition, right, if you're in a small company, they have more opportunities to kind of do different jobs because there's just not enough people and lots of things to do. So you can volunteer to do things. And once you've done some campaigns and you've done some messaging and so on and so forth, you get more because there's just work there. If you're in a large company, it's more difficult to kind of, get into marketing and product strategy and so on, if that's what you want to do. I would not, the ROI on a Harvard or a Wharton or a Stanford MBA, it's hard to justify unless you get into consulting or banking. So that's the map. And I'd say like doing a Berkeley evening MBA, which is kind of a huge pain in the ass, it's a lot of work, or Santa Clara. Those are great ways to kind of get some of the kind of trade craft skills that will allow you to kind of transition in a larger company. So the larger companies then will say, oh, okay, like you've kind of done you're an engineer and you got some MBA, so perhaps you're now ready to do technical marketing or more into product marketing. So that's how, like, again, back to Chitra's point, depending upon where you want to go and where you are, that's the way to think about your different choices.
So, Naren, are we taking audience
Yeah, we'll
questions?
take 2 questions from the audience because we want to keep time. And a lot more of this discussion is going to happen during the social hour, my guess. So you raise your hand, I can give you a mic.
Hi. Typically, as a startup founder, you start off a company with a product vision, like which is kind of dear to your heart. Like typically, like marketing people may look at it as, they may kind of buy into the product vision for them, but 100 million is better than 5 million if you can kind of cross that. But you want to still hold the product vision dear because ultimately, like marketing is a huge subject. Like selling a jumbo jet is very different from selling something else that's more of a consumer product. How do you think like that startup founder should balance the marketing function while also making sure that revenue targets are met, but also holding the product vision kind of.
I mean, this is it's the heart of a lot of things that we have to do on a day-to-day basis. Startups have very little resources. So the more you can answer your decision making of whatever choices you make, in this case we're talking about product vision in the heart of the matter. That's practically all you have at that point. So anything that comes along that is not aligned with the product vision, you have to say no. Because the resources are very limited. I don't know if that answers the question, but having the discipline to say no more often than saying yes is really at the heart of founding a company. I mean, I don't know, I have a big job at Walmart, or VP, this, that, and all that stuff. I don't think I would have learned this much in this amount of time that I've been there for 10 years. It is an incredibly painful, but at the same time satisfying experience. And the heart of it is this question you asked about product vision and prioritization. Because you have very, very, very little to go off of. It's brutal. It's hard to explain, but it is something that is very, very fundamental to a startup founding process. So you should certainly keep that in mind as you start.
Yeah, I'd say that, hang on to that vision, right? That's the essence of the startup. That's the founding difference. Not like vanilla Procter & Gamble marketing, That's fine once you bake 10 cookies, and now you want to go to 1,000 and find 1,000 consumers to buy those. The scaling part is the thing, but the initial, your first, depending upon whether you're a consumer or otherwise, your first $10 million.
I think it matters.
Yeah.
This question about vision and being focused, I think it's independent of time also.
Yeah. So till you get to a place of stability where you're past your first inning and you're into your second inning, etc. I would not give up on the vision. That is the unique thing. So hang on to that. Of course, you as a founder have to be open to feedback and change and pivot as needed. You can't be dogmatic and drive off a cliff.
Sure.
But then,
We'll take the last question here.
Hi. So I have a question on product market fit. I'm wondering, for some of the most important projects that you worked on, was it like an aha moment when you found that it was a product market fit? Can you share your experience on some of that?
Sure. Yeah, sure. I can. So, for me at least, it has not been, I don't think it's like an aha process. It's more kind of, you're converging to it, you get some hypotheses, and then you get validation, and a bunch of hypotheses that you have don't work out. A good example is a cost management, cloud costing product that we had. Hey, if you've got some workloads that you want to run in X cloud versus Y cloud versus Z cloud, how much does it cost in each of these areas? 3 years ago, we launched a product at VMware around that. And, personally, I came from AWS, and so I thought this would be a pretty cool thing to have. And, the VMware customers were not particularly, keen on it. And it took me a little bit of time to kind of figure out why that was. And now the market is hot, and there is, huge enthusiasm around that product. 3 years ago, there wasn't. The reason was that 3 years ago, it was difficult to kind of move your workloads from one cloud to the next. And so, yeah, it's kind of a science project. You can tell me about the cost of this, but, kind of academic, what am I going to do with that? But now I can actually use that product, and the insight kind of leads to action. So it wasn't sort of a aha per se, but in talking to a bunch of customers and sort of getting the sense this was there is a problem and it's interesting to solve, but this was the example where they were not willing to pay a huge amount of money for this because it really wasn't that valuable. So, I think generally I tend to converge to that kind of thing versus the light bulb goes off.
Yes, for me too, it's the same thing, right? There's no, honestly, an aha moment, right? You kind of have a smaller aha moment, you converge to the bigger one,
Yeah.
right? That's basically what it is. It's all about, it's the iterative process, right? Just like we do agile development, ironically, even the marketing team is running sprints, right? And so, again, the point is, test out the hypothesis, you get your feedback for the first, what I call the teaching customers, right? And then you kind of iterate on top of that. And again, your sales team will also sort of give you some of the feedback. But make sure that, if it's the first $1 or the MVP, make sure that you at least have an MVP, right, product out there, and then keep sort of making changes from product market fit in increments. Don't wait for it to be just a picture perfect product.
So I'll give you the 3 months what we've done since we started thinking about monetizing Pesa. Everybody wanted to have salary information. We figured out the first part of go-to-market, we get 1.2, 1.5 million consumers coming to our website every month now. So this information is interesting to people. So how can we sell it? So we took the salary data to companies. So this is, I'm going to describe 4 different experiments that you asked about what we found to work in. I think we have it now, but we'll see. Starting November to now. So we took the salary data to companies, they said go away because we don't make crowdsourced data. So we immediately stopped that. By mid-December, we realized that we have a salary data, we also have users. So if anybody wants to run recruiting with us, we can bring them our users. So we went back to the same customers and said, give me a job and I'll give you a user. Right? So here's a user, and we ask the user before we share the contact information, unlike LinkedIn, we don't want to spam people. So then the users became sort of engaged with the companies, and they're like, send me more. Well, that's all I have. I only get so many people a month. LinkedIn has 500 million, I have 1 million. So then, well, it's interesting, but how are you finding the users? You have great users, but how are you finding them? Well, that's our matching technology. So, okay, I'll give you a matching technology. So the third experiment in by February, we put our matching technology into the ATS, the applicant tracking system. So Greenhouse, Delaware, Iceland, 50 of them. Very fragmented market. So we got them the matching technology. Okay, how do I match? Well, you want to give me your data so I can match all your jobs to all your candidates. I can give it to you in 2 minutes. Sure, but are you software certified? You have GDPR? Why? Because I need to give you my consumer, my applicant data, I saw PIM. Okay, kill that experiment. It's the fourth. So now we're at a point where so this is the process of iteration you just heard. As you get feedback from the customers, we're at a point where we now know kind of what are all the pitfalls we need to avoid. So we're now trying to sell a product that we saw the demo, you guys saw the demo this morning, where I got the sort of candidate's resume and saw job matches. We're now allowing companies to drop a job in and get candidates back.
See, like a key
That's
thing,
kind of the iterative process. We got the 4 or 5 steps in to get to the what we think may be the product market fit. I'm pretty sure there's 4 more steps before we actually get to it.
well, the great point here is that he's not attached to any of these solutions. He's kind of giving it out, right? Yeah, he's got to move on.
You're killed more than you want to. You've got to throw away code, there's a lot of recording all the projects of Pesa, but you just got to keep going.
Yeah, so VMware, right? I've left VMware 4 years ago, and Sajak can tell me in the computing team right now. But when we started, we were what's called a virtual desktop virtualization sort of mission. That was the only mission that I had, right? Then we expanded, like, well, look, this whole thing about desktop virtualization doesn't necessarily, it's a small niche market, right? So it's not going to sort of give me too much of money, right? So then we expanded it to application virtualization. And then when we were, and then we kind of had to sort of look at desktop management, right? So literally when I left VMware, that's sort of where we were, right? And since then, the whole end user computing business unit has evolved even more. I'm not sure how big it is, it's like what, a billion plus right now. But again, like, you know, when I started back into, again, it's like what, 10 years later, it went from 0 to whatever it is, like a billion plus, right? But we at least every year we would keep pivoting or changing what the overall product strategy was, right? So desktop virtualization to sort of application virtualization to managing entire desktops to mobile device, mobile application management, etc. Right? And then and now I think there's a big focus on security. Right? So you can literally see over the last 10 years there were so many iterations there too.
Naren is smiling at me, so we have to conclude this discussion. Sorry. I think Chitra, you wanted to say anything. All right, she'll be available after the panel. So all the panelists will be available if you have any more questions. So please join me in thanking the panelists for sharing their views.